Hey folks, tidbits from the Word. Brother Peter here. I'm going to do one more of these little 10-minute excerpts out here in my wife's flower garden. I got her rose book out this morning, and I started looking at it, and we started thinking about flowers and about Jesus and about how God said that one lily was arrayed more than the rest of the whole world that is run by man. Everything is done by man. It doesn't hold a candle to what God did with that one lily, that one beautiful lily with those arms sticking out of the center of it, with those little buds on it that make that nectar for the birds and stuff, and then it makes that pollen on it that a little bird or that bee can come along and get, and while they're getting that nectar, they get a little bit of that pollen on them, and they spread that pollen around, and it triggers other things to grow. And I want to relate that this morning to Christians. What kind of Christian are you? Are you a Christian that pollinates good pollen? Are you a Christian that other people would want to come around and get something from you, like the birds come and get that nectar from that lily, like the bees come and get that nectar from that lily, and then they go out and they spread and they pollinate around them? What kind of flower are you this morning? What kind of nectar do you have? What do you have? I was looking at, they went from roses, and they talked about some pot plants over here and how to develop a pot plant, and how it has to be, the earth has to be turned up. And God had to come turn my earth up one day and say, I want to make you a flower that's worthy of being a flower, Brother Peter, and son Peter, after I got saved. And but we got to watch out for some things. We got to get some earth with some good pH in it. Well, whatever type of flower you're going to be, there's going to be a certain type of pH soil we got to have for you. At first, the soil could be too rich too quick, and you could die from trying to get too much too quick. So the soil has to be just right for certain flowers. Now, when you first get saved, you got to have the milk of the Word. You're not ready for the meat. You're not ready for the strong fertilizer that you can put on the flower later on. If you put too strong a fertilizer on that fresh flower, you'll burn it up. And that's what happens with a lot of people. They get in the church, and somebody comes along and they try to grow them too fast and try to put too much on them. And say, well, man, that's sinning, that's sinning, that's sinning, that's sinning. Hey, go back and remember where you came from. If you are a grown-up Christian, remember where you came from. You have to take baby steps at first. You got to bear with people just like somebody has to bear with a flower when the flower's little, and tend it. Flowers have to be tended. Now, the earth that I want to refer to today is the Word of God. If you've got your tendons in the Word of God, and you're a brand new little flower, and you're growing, you're going to grow from each word in that book as you read it. Over there in the book of John, start over there in the book of John, start in the book of Proverbs. This is the book of wisdom. That's the earth that you need to be putting your roots into. That's the way you can start growing, and as you grow. Now, I can honestly tell you by looking at some flowers on the back fence over here, that I looked in this book and I said to my wife, I'll help you dig some holes. We'll put some sand down in there, and then we'll put some rocks over that, and then we'll put a little more sand, we'll put a little fertilizer under that, and then we'll plant those roses. Because this book said those roses can get root rot, and root rot is where too much water gets down and stays around the root, and the flower doesn't do good. So we got to be careful of root rot as we grow as Christians, and make sure that the soil is not too heavy or too wet. And then there's a place where flowers have to be pruned. Now they got to be pruned in the right place. You prune a rose bush in the wrong place, you kill it. But there's an exact place where you got to prune that bush, and when you prune it, you got to prune it carefully. You got to prune it with some thought. Now, if you're an older Christian and you're working with a younger Christian, be careful how you prune that Christian. Be careful how you say to him or her, this is the way I do this a lot of times. I say, you know, God showed me this very thing right here. For me, would be a sin. For me to do that and try to live the Christian life that I'm living. Because other people around me would look at me and say, you know that Peter's a hypocrite because he's doing this or that. Well, you know, there are young Christians that are doing this or that, and they're not hypocrite. They just haven't come to the knowledge yet. They're not hypocrite. And how are they going to come to the knowledge except you help them prune where pruning's needed? And you've got to do that. You can do that just exactly like this flower garden is exactly like your life, your Christian life is. You start out small, and you got to have good earth. You got to have fertilizer. You got to have proper nutrients. You got to have the right kind of watering. And then afterwards, some stuff called compost, which is natural fertilizer. Compost, something you took some garbage, buried it in some grass and stuff, lawn trimmings and leaves and stuff, and you let it set in a pile, and you let it get rotten. It has to rot before it becomes good. And then when you reuse it, it is the best thing for the flowers that you can get. And we must go in and put our roots in the Word, all through the Word, and pick up the best fertilizer in there. The Bible said except the seed die first, it cannot bring forth life. If you took a green seed off of a flower over here and stuck it in the ground, it would rot before it would flourish. But you take that seed and dry it, and you say, well, that seed's dead, it's dry. And you stick it in the ground and you water it again, it's going to pop up and be something. Some of us who have been saved for years have been dormant. We're like a seed that's never got any water. Why haven't got any water? Because we hadn't fertilized it, we hadn't poured water on it. You need to get in the book, dig the fertilizer out of the book, get some water from the Word, put it on your life, and make your life start flourishing again if you've been sitting dormant. Like some of my wife's flowers, the tulips, they bloomed one time out here. But they're going to sit dormant now until next year. Many Christians are like that. They bloom one time real quick, and oh, they're beautiful for a week or two, a year, and then they're gone. You say, what happened to him? He came over here, and he came to church Easter Sunday, and he came back 2 more Sundays, and he bloomed for a while, and then, wow, he's gone. Well, next Easter, he'll come back. He'll bloom again like the tulip, and he'll be here for 4 or 5 weeks, and bam, he's gone again. What happened? He's a tulip. And all around a flower that flourishes all year, what we're supposed to be. We're supposed to be like what they call a forever blooming rose that blooms all the way around. Now, a little pruning's good. Too much pruning, too quick, can kill something. A healthy cut is where you prune. Cut it where you're supposed to cut it. And then the overall look at the whole bush and the flower. Look it over and see what kind of condition it's in. If you're going to help the flower, if you're going to help somebody grow in the church, if you're going to help somebody grow that's a young Christian, look the flower over. It's a young flower. It's a new flower. Hey, be careful not to get too quick on it, because it's going to grow at its own speed. And as it grows at its own speed, give it the proper cut. Give it the proper care. And when to prune it. When to prune it. Watch it. Don't prune it before it's time. Wait until you've taught it, you've fertilized it, you've given it enough, you got it in the Word enough, and there's a root over there in that Word enough, so that when you prune it, you don't kill it. You can jump on somebody real quick and say, you keep smoking like that and you're going to die and go to hell. No, that ain't true. Smoking not going to make a man die and go to hell. Smoking might make him stink, but it ain't going to make him die and go to hell. So we got to be careful how we talk to a young Christian. He's going to have to get roots enough so he can learn on his own how to drop these things off, how to drop petals that are rusty looking on the outside off, so that the new petals underneath can show good and clean. That's likening a flower to a Christian this morning. And that's what we were doing in this little 10-minute thing. like and